Welcome, everyone, to episode 83 of the RDH Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chad. Joined alongside me is my brother, Tanner. How's it hanging today, dude?
It's hanging. We're doing well. We're in the midst of the off season. We're in the midst of chaos and free agency. And if you,
Define doing well, because I'm not doing too good.
well, not individually, but we're doing well in the coverage aspect of things, right? You know, we're
Gotcha.
we're here to not break the news, but let you know about all the news that's going down. And if you're a Cowboys fan, the lack of news, there in Dallas, there has been a couple free agency signings, but it's not really been what Cowboys fans have hoped for, right? A lot of dink and dunks over here. Not a lot of big splashes, just like kind of putting your finger in the water and messing around a little bit with it.
Just like playing with your food type thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things. If you're a Cowboy fan, right? We're just gonna jump right into it. If you haven't heard us before, we talk some Cowboy sports, and today is, believe it or not, Tanner and I are actually Cowboy fans, and we are going to just derail this team. You know what I mean? We're going to start with who they've signed first, and then we'll get into a little bit of what we think about it. Right. So Kenneth Murray signed in a trade from Tennessee. I'm going to give that one, Tanner, for those draft listeners on the show, a good bow tie. Okay, for those of you not familiar with the process, we did the draft show last year. We're gonna try to do it again this year. First round of the NFL draft. We react to the draft as the draft is going on. If it's a good pick, I put on a good bow tie.
The good bow tie.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Good bow tie. There's good bow ties and there's bad bow ties. That's a good bow tie in terms of that pick.
I like it.
Jack Sanborn.
Don't know who that
agreed
is.
to terms with the Cowboys. Bad bow tie. Cornerback Career Elam.
I like it.
Signing a trade from the Buffalo Bills to the Cowboys. Now, here's the thing. The Dallas Cowboys, if you're a former first-round pick and you suck, welcome to the team.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the team. You know what I mean? Elam, I can't necessarily say he sucked, but he definitely has not lived up to that first-round potential. Just go look at the details of the trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, like a sixth round. It's not high up. It's so if you can say that's been only a little bit of production in terms of Buffalo. Now, a change of scenery can definitely change guys.
Mm-hmm.
And he is essentially replacing the Jordan Lewis who the Dallas Cowboys lost, right? So for me, I'm not looking at that position as an upgrade. What are your thoughts on the Elam, Sanborn, and Murray before I just lift off all these picks?
Like you said, I like the Murray one. It's I'll kind of like join this with the Elam talk because it's very similar. It's two guys who were scouted very highly, obviously by the Cowboys. You can tell during that draft process, and now they're not doing too well on their team, so they're kind of coming over to the Cowboys for some late round picks, some kind of very very little bit of draft capital. And I think the Elam pick was probably my favorite to pick up. I'll say that. Because I think he spent like 3 years in Buffalo, and he, like you said, is a first-round pick, so he kind of has that fifth-year option, too, if they want to go that route. So he's going into his fourth year, I think, and not getting paid a whole ton, and we'll see what he can kind of do with, learning behind Diggs and Deron Bland, but he's going to kind of, like you said, be in his own little world over there in that nickel spot. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how it changes, especially since Jordan Lewis was such a lockdown player at that position for however many years we've had him, and he's been a very long tenured Cowboy, and he's now the highest paid slot corner in the NFL. So it's going to be, probably a decrease in production, but the question is going to be by how much, with Elam being the projected starter at that position. So I don't I would have loved to keep Jordan Lewis, but I think his price tag was just a little bit too high for Jerry, and just a little bit too high, for anyone who could ever possibly walk through those doors for Jerry, because he's not signing really anyone above $6 million a year. So it's a bar, unless your name is Osa, but it's a bargain pick. You're looking through the bargain bin in Walmart trying to find some DVDs for cheap, and this is what they got. And
Dude,
we'll see kind of how that works out. But that's what I
that
feel.
one hit me. That was a direct shot at me.
Oh yeah,
that was dude. I remember we used to, like, every Friday, Saturday night, go to the $5 bin at Walmart, and you'd find some steals in that bin. Find some absolute steals. Also, I still get freaking ID'd at Walmart to buy movies. I'm not even joking. Happened like a year ago in California. I'm like, well, really? Really? She's like, I don't know, you're 18. I'm like, how do I have this many tattoos if I'm 18? You know what I mean? Like, how do you have this when you're 18 years old? Like, there's no way. But you know what? Shout out Walmart.
They're doing the
Dallas,
most. Okay, they're doing the most.
they're not. They're actually doing the least out of every department store ever. Dallas agrees to terms with punter Brian Anger. I stepped foot into a Walmart in Florida. It's a different place.
It is.
I'm just going to say that.
It's wild.
It's a different place, especially in Florida. I saw some shit, and I was there for like maybe 5 minutes. But hey, you know what? Again, shout out Walmart.
Okay. I've been there.
Dallas,
it's a rough scene, man. It's a rough scene.
Yeah, kind of like the bad parts of town you don't really want to go to. You know what I mean?
That's the entire state.
Used to go there all the time. So Brian Anger, nice, by the way, I heard that one. Brian Anger re-signs with Dallas, agrees to terms. It's a punter, so nice job. I think 2 years. Agree to terms with defensive end Peyton Turner. Oh, I apologize. The punter is a good bow tie for me.
I think so too.
The defensive end Peyton Turner agreed to terms. That's going to be a bad bow tie for me. But at the same time, you know, Dallas is like, we're going to re-sign everybody, or just if you don't really know who you are, you're going to bring you to our team. Kevontae Turpin re-signs with the Dallas Cowboys, the best returner in the league for around $6 million a year for the next 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. Look, the wide receiver market, you said it the best when we were talking about this pick, when it the re-signing happened. This is a good signing, and take it away.
I think I'll start with this. You know, with
good bow tie.
Good bow tie. Very good bow tie. I actually really like this and the Brian Anger signings, because what have been, you know, the Cowboys scapegoat in a lot of these games this past year was that special teams unit. You know, Brandon Aubrey, he's kicking these long ass field goals. You know, Brian Anger's punting this thing to the back corner of the end, right before the end zone, right in that pylon area. And Turpin's easily been the best return man since he's joined the Cowboys in the NFL. So I think you look at this situation, you look at who they've got in the roster in terms of special teams, and I think you can easily say that this is a top 1 to 2 league, or top 1 to 2 unit in the entire NFL, just based on the skill positions at the special teams, necessity positions that they have. So I like the signings a lot, but with Turpin, I think this is kind of going to be that next, wide receiver 2 to 3, depending on the set. Obviously, CeeDee's going to be number 1, and then we could see Jalen Tolbert take that number 2 spot. But I mean, I think Turpin's going to be your number 3 receiver. You saw it a lot last year, late in the year, kind of with Cooper Rush at the helm. Turpin going and getting some yards. He's fast. He's got that breakaway speed, and you know, if it's one of those situations where he gets over the top and Dak makes a good throw, you know, we're going to be looking at this being like, this guy's a dual threat in every sense of the mean. Like, he can play on special teams, he can play in the offense, he can play probably not on the defense. That'd be kind of weird, but he could, you know, fill out these positions really well. So I think that's kind of where Dallas is going with this. Obviously, they need help at wide receiver, but it's one of those things where you can kind of get a bang for your buck and kind of, you know, hit 2 birds with 1 stone, right, with Turpin, because he's going to be that return man and that wide receiver 3 for you in a lot of sets. So he's going to see the field a decent amount, and I think it's just going to bring more production to his game. He's just been learning since he's gotten the NFL. So I like it a lot, and at least we know that special teams won't be a worry for the Cowboys in the near future.
Knock on wood. And I'm right there with you with that. You know what I mean? Dallas's kicker is unbelievable. They re-signed the punter, like we said, and then bring back Kevontae Turpin. I mean, the thing about Kevontae Turpin with me is you're losing a number 2, right, with Brandon Cooks. So this could be the opportunity for Kevontae Turpin to essentially step up and walk into that number 2 role, depending upon where Dallas, you know, drafts a wide receiver in this draft. There's some solid wide receivers in this draft class, especially in the first round. Thinking, you know, Emeka Ibuka definitely could fall into that category. I wish McMillan would be there. Tetaroa out of Arizona, but he's not going to be. That kid's absolutely nasty. But the thing with Turpin, like I was saying, is he has the opportunity to be a number 2. But his production really is special teams, because when you watch him on the offensive side of the ball, sometimes he's there, but there's a lot of games where you really don't notice him on the offensive side of the ball. And Dallas did a better job last year at trying to get him the ball, but you have a whole new coaching staff essentially in Dallas in terms of like where they're at. You have Schottenheimer, which is just another just horrendous. That's a bad bow tie, by the way. That's a real bad bow tie, on fire bow tie. So Dallas is, doing what they're going to do. But again, we're not going to rag on them yet. We're just talking about the signings. Good bow tie, bad bow tie. Solomon Thomas. That's a good bow tie. That's a good bow tie. You bring in Solomon Thomas in for a couple years, not bad. Robert Jones, the offensive lineman, which is a guard, if I'm not mistaken, from Miami, who's, I think, 27, and his numbers aren't the best, but when you kind of look at a guard that's 27, that one to me was a very sneaky signing. And then your boy Javonte Williams, what'd you think about that one, bringing him in at running back from Denver?
I think that's probably behind Turpin is my favorite signing. You could probably put the rest in the same category as, you know what I mean? I like the Anger signing, but like, who's the running back on this roster right now? Rico Dowdle, he goes and signs in Carolina for a 1-year deal, and Dallas looks like it's back in 2014, like 2013, when it's like, okay, Darren McFadden's going to be our running back. Okay, solid, dude. Like that's who we're going out and getting. So Javonte Williams, he's young. He's very young. I think he's like 24, but he had like that ACL sprain, which is kind of the reason people want to shop him, want to sell him around the Denver Broncos. And I think he's a 24-year-old running back. Yes, he's gone through an injury that could have, halted his career development in a way, but he's got a new scene. He's got a new place. He's going to run behind with Dallas, and I think it's going to be a good change. We like Rico, we like Zeke, but let's get some young guys in there. Let's get some guys who are unproven in the NFL and just see what he can do. There's really not a downside to this, and if you go and draft a running back high in this upcoming draft in the first round or the second round, then this guy is going to be your change of pace back. And I think Javonte is going to be an excellent change of pace back, because that's kind of what he did in Denver. So I think it's going to be good. I like the signing a lot.
And when you have your starting running back leaving, and you essentially have Javonte Williams and Deuce Vaughn as your two running backs on the roster right now, and that's about it.
Deuce.
And then you have Deuce. Then you have the practice squad guys, right? So running back is obviously going to be a need in the draft. Same thing with receiver, right? Your top two wide receivers right now are Kevontae Turpin and CeeDee Lamb. And then Jalen Tolbert's going to be sitting there probably at number 3 in terms of skill. So running back room is thin. Wide receiver room is thin. Offensive lineman room is still thin because you lost a Hall of Famer, most likely. And the last kind of good guard that Dallas used to have. I mean, that offensive line was one of the best in the league, top with the Steelers. But solid signing there with the offensive lineman. You just have to continue to bring in more offensive linemen. Another offensive lineman that Dallas re-signed was Brock Hoffman. They also re-signed defensive end Tyrus Wheat. They re-signed safety Juwan Thomas, re-signed safety Marquise Bell, and re-signed their long snapper Trent Saig. And then they brought back cornerback CJ Goodwin, and then the defensive tackle Osa Odigizua at a massive contract that we got into last episode. Now,
looking better
again,
by the
for
day.
me, the biggest thing about the Cowboys is that this tells me with the release, I guess just walking away, Rico Dowdle, that was kind of a shock to me. I thought Rico was going to for sure be back in Dallas for one more year, but the fact that he goes, that opens up your mind and opens up your draft board big time.
So for me, it was a very small deal, if I remember him going to Carolina. So I think 7. Exactly. Like, that's nothing. That's nothing to bring back Rico. Like, I feel like Jerry would have done that, to your point.
It's interesting. And to me, it's like, did Dallas essentially show their hand with that release? Like, did that actually mean that Jonty comes into play out of Boise State? Does that actually mean at number 12 that Dallas could do that? Or is Dallas going to take the best offensive lineman they have there because they shuffle them around anyway? Or are they going to take the best wide receiver available? Those, to me, are the 3 options that you should go. They'll probably go some random person, though. And you never know who Dallas is going to pick. So for me, that potentially opens the door a lot more. I think if you re-sign Rico Dowdle and you sign Williams out of Denver, that essentially is like, all right, well, Jonty's probably not going to happen at 12. But now it opens the door for me. It's just is Chicago smart enough to take him before you, or is another team smart enough to take him before you? Because Tanner and I value the running backs a whole lot more than the other positions. You've seen a resurgence at running backs this past year. You've seen a running back that quite literally won the Super Bowl for his team with Saquon Barkley and got paid. You know what I mean? So the running backs are a great position, and this year in the draft, it's very strong at number one. And then you have some great guys in the third to the fifth round. For me, those are going to be the sweet spots for running back in this draft. Now, Dallas can take a big hit at number one, a big swing, or they're going to wait a little bit and we see what's going to happen. But we'll see what happens with Dallas Draft Talk. In a couple weeks, we're going to come back with a second mock draft. By the way, that's going to be a couple weeks away. Not going to give you too much info on that one, but it's going to be good. It's not going to be similar to the first one. I can tell you that much. Now, reactions to all of this stuff. What do you think overall with Dallas? What would you if you're sitting in a room with Jerry Jones right now? I mean, what are you saying? Because the Dallas gets out $50+ million in salary cap, goes to number 9 in terms of franchises with most salary cap to spend, and does just a bunch of deals under $6 million. Like, what is the Mikey contract coming? Like, what do you think about this whole free agency thus far for the Cowboys, and what grade would you give it?
When you compare it to this year and last year, I think it's already better than last year just because.
And 2 people.
Yeah, like it's pretty much, it has to go up from last year. So I think it's kind of to your point. I think it's going to be one of two things. I think we're going to see a splash, and it depends on where it's going to come from, right? There's only one reason you're clearing up 50 million in cap space, and that's to go sign someone big, right? And I would hope that that person is Micah Parsons. I would hope that that's where they're going to go with this. But you never know. They could go out and sign a big free agent. There's not a whole lot left, but they still could see if they can find something. But I realistically think that this is going to be Micah Parsons. I really hope they get this deal done before the beginning of the next season. I want this on the books now because it's just going to be much easier to deal with later on, especially since I don't know how much Micah's going to get. We still have TJ Watt's still going to have to do his deal in like a year or two, and he's probably going to break the market. So Myles Garrett just got his deal done. Max Crosby just got his deal done. They're waiting, and it's kind of not paying off. So I think you want to get this done sooner rather than later because it's just that defensive edge rusher market is just going to get more and more expensive over time, and Micah Parsons will be the number one paid in the NFL. If you look at how the Dak contract situation, the CD contract situations go down, he's gonna be number one because he has we're gonna look 5 years down the line and be looking at it like, okay, who deserves the most money? Like, who was this a good contract? Is he better than Myles Garrett right now? No, he's not. But does he have the potential to be? Yes, he does. He has potential to be the best defensive player in the NFL. He has the potential to be the defensive player of the year. It's just that's how they're going to treat that contract negotiation. Micah knows it, and so does Jerry. So he's going to break the market, and I think that's where this increase of cap room is, geared towards, right? So I want this deal done this offseason. I think it's going to pay dividends in the long run, and it's just going to give you, a solid base moving forward with your 3 guys that are going to be a franchise with Dak, CD, and Micah. So you get those guys under contract, and you worry about the rest.
What do you give the okay, so essentially you're saying that you're going to give Dallas like a pretty decent offseason grade
No,
because
I wouldn't say that. I mean, it's I would have liked them to go on and sign like a bigger name receiver, maybe a bigger name edge rusher, maybe a bigger name linebacker, right? Because we just
anyone with a big name,
maybe a running back, like maybe go and pay like anyone, so I'm gonna give it a C, right? It's gonna be in the C. Like they re-signed the guys that they needed to re-sign, and
if they re-sign Micah, you give them a C, correct? If they don't re-sign Micah, please tell me they're like an F.
Yeah, exactly. No, 100%. Okay. If they re-sign Micah, we'll give them a C+ because it's like, okay, I get you're trying to do as much with the cap room that, like, okay, we're going to re-sign Micah. I get it. Let's try and get some other guys like the Javonte Williams. Like, again, the special teams is the best in the league, and Turpin got a crazy deal. He's only getting paid $6 million a year, over 3 years. So, like, Inger got a good deal, and they got a budget running back. Again, all that considered, and you sign Micah, I'll give him, a middling C, maybe a C+. if they go in. We'll throw in Kyrie Elam. I like that one as well. So, and they re-signed Marquise Bell. I like that player too. So give them a C plus if they re-sign Micah. If they don't, yeah, it's 100% an F.
Because if you take out $50 million in salary cap and you use about like 13 of it, you know what I mean? Like, and the other 40 is just chilling. It's like, guys, you gotta do something with that. But it kind of lines up in terms of the contract with right around what Miles got and everything. But you didn't do yourself a favor, like you've said, with waiting for Miles to sign, right? You're just waiting for these guys to sign. So it's not the best. And again, you just paid your defensive tackle $20 million. I don't know if Micah goes in the room and says I'm 2 times the player that Osa is, but I think can't really argue that. So like that's $40 million just right there, and not to mention the Miles contract that already happened. I mean, I don't have a fantasy trophy that was $40 million a year was my team name back a while ago when I thought it was going to be a joke that quarterbacks were going to get that, and now defensive ends are getting it. And I'm not saying it's bad by any stretch of the means. I'm all about athletes and guys getting paid. Don't get me wrong, but like Dallas is really, really handy. Like they're hurting themselves here. They are literally handcuffing themselves to a pole with the Dak contract. You cannot let CD walk, but that's a big contract, right? I understand DeMarcus Lawrence goes away in free agency and that contract gets freed up, or in a trade to Seattle and that cap room gets freed up. But all that cap room that you literally had for D-Law essentially just got taken from all those other guys, right, that you just signed, because it's not a ton of money that you just signed. And even your re-signings is probably pretty close to like within D-Law's cap hit that hit last year, because that was like number 2 or number 3 in terms of cap hit on the Dallas Cowboys. So you're recouping money there. So for me, it's like you still have so much money to play with. And you see what New England did on day one. I mean, they spent like 80 million or something crazy like that out of their like 144 million. They still have more. You know what I mean? And to me, these moves look like a Dallas team that is really confident in what they have right now. And all we need to do is pick up a couple little guys here, have another draft, and we'll be fine, right? That's been the draft strategy in the Dallas Cowboys my entire lifetime. And what have we gotten? If you're a child listening, turn it off. Fuck all. Nothing. There's been nothing. There's been a couple playoff runs. Great job. Great job. Golf clap from the guy in the back. You know what I mean? Like, realistically, you need to do something to change the franchise, because doing the same thing over and over and over again isn't going to work. Not to mention, you have a team like Washington who comes up and gets Deebo Samuel and trades the Houston freaking Texans for Laramie Tunsil, the best left tackle in the game, in my opinion, right now, and they are solidifying their team. It's like they're making all these moves in the division. Thank God New York's not any good. But like, Dallas right now is flirting and probably going to date third place in the NFC East for a couple years. And I've been saying that for a while now. And if I eat my words, awesome. But for me here, you look at the teams you're playing in your division, and yes, you can say that you technically address some of the needs. But again, that you think that Cyrus Jones is going to stop Jordan Davis on the inside? Are you crazy? You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many just question marks in my mind as a Dallas Cowboys fan. And hey, you know what? We get a podcast and we're a couple couch warriors, so we get to be vocal about it. But when you and I mean, season ticket holders, our dad was season ticket holder. We got to watch all those games. We got to watch the worst. We got to watch the Quincy Carter Dallas Cowboys, the really bad Dallas Cowboys. I'm glad the Cowboys are good, but I'm so tired of this 9-8, 8-9 kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's just it's not a good thing. But we'll see. And if Dallas doesn't re-sign Micah, oh man, we will have an emergency pod. You know what I mean? An emergency pod.
Then they better make a very, very big trade. That's the only other thing. If they don't re-sign Micah, I don't see a world in which that happens. But they make a very, very big trade in that situation, I would think.
100%. So, do you have any more thoughts on the Cowboys, or should we jump to free agency?
I mean, there's not really much else with the Cowboys except that they just kind of stink.
Okay. That's you left none on the bone there. Let me tell you that. You gave him a C. You gave him a C+ if they re-sign Micah. I'm gonna give them I'm going to give him a D plus right now. And we are back. We had some technical difficulties, but don't worry, we're back. And last thing we're going to say about the Cowboys for me, I think my grade might have gotten cut off if it didn't. D plus. Right now, I give the Cowboys in the offseason, and if they re-sign Micah, I'm going to jump it up to a C minus to be real nice. But right now, that's where I'm at. If it doesn't re-sign Micah, and even if it's a big trade, I'm probably still not going to be that happy because for me, Mike is I wouldn't say a generational guy, but 100% agree with you that he has the potential to have the numbers like Myles Garrett has, the numbers like TJ Watt has. And you have a defensive tackle that's getting paid $20 million right next to you. All right, free agency. The biggest, we're just going to go contracts here. We have Milton Williams, a defensive tackle. That's the biggest contract that's been signed. That was the New England Patriots. He's 26. That's not bad. Yeah, I mean, defensive tackle, best defensive tackle in free agency. You get him for $100 million. It's $4 a year. Guaranteed was like $51 million, so it's a bit. But this is the one I want to get to because I want your opinion on this. Sam Darnold goes to the Seattle Seahawks 3 years for $100 million. Skull J.J. McCarthy, here we go.
Yeah, so he's in Seattle for basically like $33.3 million a year, right? We're kind of looking at it around that range. I love it.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing deal. Like, well, how would you not like that? It's like a Baker deal. You know, like that's kind of what Baker did when he left and went to Tampa. It's, you know, you're really not hurting that much. Let's say that, you know, Sam Darnold doesn't work out. Let's say he, you know, turns back into a pumpkin again. And let's say that's kind of what happens over there in Seattle, given that they've gotten rid of like both their, you know, their top two receivers. Now they got JSN and Sam Darnold's just going to be trying to figure things out. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like it's going to be, you kind of ask yourself, is it an improvement over Geno? Maybe depending on who you talk to, marginally, kind of, you know, you're not really sure. So you get a very cheap quarterback for the next couple years, next 3 years. And I think if he plays beyond that contract, you're loving life. If he plays like he did in Minnesota, you're loving life. And if he doesn't, you're probably also loving life too, because it gives you a good draft pick. And, you know, they're trending towards a rebuild, with those trades that they kind of, got rid of a bunch of guys, you know, so either way, I think this is a good situation for Seattle. They're not, you know, let's say that they still had Geno, let's say that they still had, you know, Tyler Lockett and DK. They're not going to go and win a Super Bowl. Like, we know that. So I think they just wanted to blow it up a little bit, see if they can get some capital, see if they can switch things up. And if Sam Darnold works out, it's going to be a massive, like, we're going to look at this being like, this is an insanely good deal. You know, like, this is insane. Now they can go and sign anyone they want, you know, but again, I think it covers your bases a little bit in the event that he stinks. So I like it. You know, it's a very safe contract for the Seattle Seahawks. So I think I will say too, you know, you should still consider this as like a trial period for Sam Darnold, because you don't know what version of him you're going to get. So I think some veteran QB help could also be beneficial in that quarterback room as well. You know, some guys to continue to let him learn, and continue to get him better. A little bit of competition will be good for him. So Seattle is taking their own route, and we'll see how it works out.
It's just interesting. It's funny to me. It's like a good deal is $33 million for a quarterback. It's like, that's absolutely insane. A year, sorry, $33 million a year, $100 million. Not to mention all the guaranteed stuff that goes on. Not to mention all the dead cap stuff that's going to hit as well if he doesn't fill out the contract. But I mean, he had one good year, and the rest of his time in the NFL was not that great. And he got $100 million. Like, that shows you how valuable that position is. And you're right. If he does well and continues to do what he did in Minnesota, you know, cough, looking in 9 months, it's not going to happen. But if it is for some strange reason, right? If he's like number one in fantasy for a crazy, like, then you look like an absolute genius, right? But I don't know about that one, man. I'm not holding my breath on that one. But the Vikings, the reason they let him walk is because they have three massive free agent signings with Will Fries, the offensive guard, 5 years, $88 million. Byron Murphy, the cornerback, who's 27, 3 years, $54 million. And then they trade, I think Washington actually released Jonathan Allen, but he was signed just like that, and he got signed for 3 years. It says 51 million here, which I thought it was more. But I think that might be the restructure of the contract, which is crazy. Dallas, I guess Washington wouldn't have traded Dallas, but that's what Minnesota's doing. You've got Dan Moore, the tackler who re-signs with Tennessee, 4 years, 82. The Green Bay Packers re-signing Aaron Banks, the guard, 4 years, 77 million. This one's interesting. Josh Sweat, the Philadelphia Eagles star defensive lineman, goes from the Arizona Cardinals, 4 years, $76 million from the Eagles. You were telling me a little bit about this, but kind of go into this one for me because, like I said, you were saying how Josh Sweat was a guy that had so much production, but this Eagles team is just so good, and they can afford to lose him because of the guys that they have on that defensive line.
Go back and watch the Super Bowl. If you don't know who this guy is, go back and watch the Super Bowl. I promise you will immediately know who he is because he made the impact on the biggest stage. I think he had such a good game in the Super Bowl that kind of propelled him to these numbers, to these kind of pay prices, these price tags for free agency. So we know that Philadelphia is going to have to, in the very near future, pay their 2 stud defensive linemen, their 2 stud cornerbacks, right? They already paid Bond, right? So he's under contract, but he got a bag, So, and they let C.J. Gardner-Johnson go. Like, Philadelphia hasn't done a whole lot in free agency except letting guys leave because they know what's going to happen in the very near future. So, whoever got this guy is probably going to get a very, very good player because he knows kind of how to learn the right way. He knows the path to the Super Bowl. He knows how to prepare for games. And he showed up at the biggest moment. That's the biggest thing for me, and that's the biggest thing for a lot of these teams. You want that star. You want that star that shines brightest on the biggest stage. So I think that's going to give him a whole heck of a lot of confidence moving forward just in his career. And who, like I said, Arizona is going to benefit from it because they're just slowly getting better and better. They're just adding pieces on the offensive and the defensive line throughout these last couple off seasons. And I like it, man. I think they're starting to go. They get a couple draft picks. You never know what can happen over there in Arizona. It's going to be a tough division, but I like it. You got to give guys that got motor. You got to get guys that have experience in the biggest games, and he's young, and that's the biggest thing too. So he's just going to continue to get better. So I love it. I think it's a great deal, and wish Dallas could have gotten him, but he's too expensive.
And you're talking about young players that are really great. Carolina sneaky signing with Trevon Moehrig, the safety, 3 years, $51 million. That's solid. I think he was at a TCU, but this is coming out of his rookie contract. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good deal. Chase Young, another guy that's young, that shows a lot of freaking promise. 3 years, $51 million as well. Deo Badabengo. I don't even know how to say his name. I know it's not Badabingo, but it's Adebayo. Maybe, I don't know. 3 years, $48 million to Chicago. He's a defensive end. Nate Hobbs, the cornerback, goes to Green Bay, 4 years, $48 million. Then the other cornerback, DJ Reed, goes to the Detroit Lions, 3 years, $48. Javon Holland. It's funny, all these safeties are coming up in their contracts, and they're all getting signed in their rookie contracts. Goes to New York. That's actually a pretty damn good signing.
Which one?
What do you think about old DJ Reed, the corner to Detroit?
Which one which New York did he go to? The Javon Holland.
The Giants. I don't think the Jets. Oh yeah, no, the Jets haven't made a move in terms of contract that we'll get to a little bit down the road here.
Okay.
But that was the New York Giants, Javon Holland. But what do you think about DJ Reed, the corner to the Lions? Just the Lions always are just like, I'm just gonna be a little sneaky here.
It's a sneaky good pickup. I like it a lot. Last year we were talking about this team needs depth. This team doesn't have any guys in the event that their starters go down, and this is a guy that's going to go in there and provide starter quality play. I think he's going to be a guy that you can easily not plug and play, but he's going to start learning the reins, and maybe he could be something even more. So they don't have a whole lot of guys that are, like go and name me a cornerback on the Lions. You know what I mean? Like it's a bunch of guys that are like, who are still kind of getting the reins, So I think this is going to be a good environment for him to learn. I think it's going to be a good environment for him to prove what he's got. And that defense is tough. It's going to be interesting. The question, right? How is this defense going to fare now that they've lost their defensive coordinator to New York, the Jets, actually? So I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting how they bounce back, but that culture's still there. He's going to adopt it real quick, and I think the Lions are they got a good guy.
Then the other safety that's incredible. I can't. I'm going to mess up his name too. He played at Denver. Holofunga. I can't say his last name. I think you can say his name.
I don't know. I can't. I don't see it. So
Talahungu. I don't even know, man. I can't do it. He played at Denver. I can't say his name, but he's freaking nasty. And he signs 3 years, 45. Then the Washington Commanders let Jonathan Allen go, like I was saying, and then immediately signed Javon Kinlaw, the defensive tackle that was drafted out of South Carolina, 3 years, $45 million. Defensive tackle goes to the Carolina as well. Wharton, 3 years, 45. Devontae Adams. Cooper Kupp goes away from Los Angeles, and Devontae Adams walks in 2 years, $44 million. What do you think about that one?
yeah, I think that was good. I don't know if we touched on this last time, but I think it's very nice. You get a different receiver than Cooper Kupp. Very, very different. Very different. But I think Puka's starting to come into his own as a number one receiver. You are seeing that pretty evidently. And I think throughout most of last season, you pretty much knew that when Puka was on the field, he's going to be the number one. And Cooper is just kind of going to be that supporting cast. And not that Cooper Kupp is a bad receiver by any stretch of the means. I think he's still got a lot of juice, but I think Devontae is a generational, type of receiver. Again, like it's hard to compare these two guys. They're so great, So both of them are going to be very, very good and highly touted, or highly just we look back on this in 10 years and be like, these guys were amazing. But Devontae Adams, I think definitely clears him by a little bit, and I think he's going to give you all around production, whether it be kind of in that short game or if he can kind of stretch the field, blown the top off the opponent. And now you're going to have a guy that has played with some of the best quarterbacks in the world in all of the NFL history. And, with Aaron Rodgers and now Matthew Stafford, like these guys are future Hall of Famers. And he knows what to do, in these situations. Like he knows exactly where he needs to be. He knows he's been in the NFL for a long time. So he's only going to make Puka better as well. Right. So Puka's just a sponge. We know that with him and Cooper Kupp, it just gets information, and that's the one thing he's going to do with Devontae is just continue to absorb that information and just get better and better. So I don't see any way you could spin this as a bad signing. And Matthew Stafford is obviously still clearly very competitive. And I mean, the Rams were a play away from being in the NFC Championship, hosting the NFC Championship, and beating the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles. So if that play goes down, who knows, what happens this free agency? Who knows what goes on to happen in the Super Bowl? So this team is very much in it, and this team is acting like they still have a very, very good shot, and the window is still 100% open. And I think the Devontae Adams signing shows that. So I think they got better with Cooper Kupp leaving. Surely you would have wanted Cooper Kupp to stay and have all three of those guys, but the cap situation doesn't work like that in the NFL. They got to get rid of someone, and unfortunately, it was Cooper. So keep your young guy and let Devontae be that new role model for him, and just continue to work with him.
And the New England Patriots getting more guys. Harold Landry, the outside linebacker, arguably one of the best outside linebackers the last couple of years in terms of production. 3 years, 43.5. The Chicago Bears overhaul and redo their entire offensive line, but they get a new center, 3 years, 42, Drew Dahlman. Then here's the New York Jets' first one up here in terms of contract, Justin Fields. With the release of Aaron Rodgers, we have Justin Fields going to the New York Jets. So he's right now going to be the starter next season, which is kind of crazy to say. But, hey, $20 million there, and you're losing Aaron Rodgers. Who knows what happens in the draft? But Justin Fields to the New York Jets and was celebrating in Dubai. Looked like a good time.
So are we going? So like when this is my question to all these NFL GMs. Like when are we going to stop believing in Justin Fields? It's all I think it's a valid question. Where has he gone and succeeded? You could say he succeeded in Pittsburgh, but he
didn't play that much.
He played like 5 games or like 6 games. I think he was like 4-2 there. Like great, good record, but like Russ was better than him, like Russ was a better quarter. I would have put Russ in a heartbeat, and Tomlin did as well. Like I like Justin Fields, but I don't see him succeeding in New York with, like, I get it. He's got a great supporting cast, he's going to, like, Garrett Wilson's going to be awesome, but what does he bring to that franchise that's not running the ball? Like, how is he
I
going?
mean, hey,
Is he going to? It'd be different if he's continuously getting better and better, but he's kind of staying in the same spot. He's really, I mean, what at this year he's like a fourth, sixth, fifth, sixth year guy. Like he's been in the NFL for multiple years, and he's still kind of shown that he's still at the same level he was when he got in. So that's just my take on it. I'm not loving this signing if I'm a New York Jets fan because it just kind of screams more mediocre football.
I mean, there's a lot that you have to like fix with that team. You know what I mean? And just imagine like all the money that like they lost with the Aaron Rodgers deal alone,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're going $20 million a year. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, it's again, the teams kind of do the same strategy, and the same thing keeps happening. That's what we talked about with the Cowboys, and that's unfortunately the same thing that's been going on with the Jets for a little while. You know, they've had some really good teams. Offenses not that great offensive wise. They had some pretty decent defense. I remember when Keyshawn Johnson was on the Jets and was not bad there, but
I
that's been
think
a minute.
I think this is kind of the only kind of way I make sense of this is Justin's going to be a bridge quarterback. He's going to be a bridge year guy, maybe 1 to 2 years. And I
Of
think
course.
you could absolutely see the New York Jets taking a quarterback in the first round here. And I think you could see that third quarterback go off the board in New York because you, I've heard from a lot of draft guys saying that three quarterbacks could absolutely happen
Dart.
in the first round. Jackson Dart. I think that's kind of what I'm looking at as well. You kind of took the words out of my mouth. So I think that could be the third guy off the board. And if they like someone else, I think that could happen as well. So I don't think you signed Justin Fields to be your full-time starter. No offense to the guy. I love him. Ohio State guy, was awesome at Ohio State, electric. But he hasn't shown you that he can be that, 17-game starter in the NFL. So I think this is going to be a bridge year, and I think they kind of showed their hand a little bit without signing, going out and signing like a Russell Wilson, or trying to get like a Kirk Cousins or like maybe, so that's my take on it. I don't think they're going to be in running for Shador. I don't think, obviously, not for Cam. So kind of puts him around in that Jackson Dart range, and that's not a bad draft strategy. Really, that really is not a bad draft strategy if you kind of give Justin Fields for the time being. So I don't love the move from the New York Jets, but if they do go and draft a quarterback, it will make a lot of sense, and we'll have to see what happens down the road with Jackson or whoever, if they whatever quarterback they want, their development, right, in that system for over the next year, and then see how he comes out the next year. So I think that's kind of where I'm pinning the organization right now. What do you think?
I mean, the Jackson Dart, I get it. I see validity to what I've heard as well, and it has come from some actual like draft guys that I listen to. But the thing with me with Jackson Dart is, and I think this is the kind of the same thing with every big like not every big analyst, but if you've like watched a lot of tape on the kid and you've watched a lot of games on Jackson Dart, which I have. Ole Miss, by the way, powder blue jerseys, some of the sickest in the game. In fact, they can pull that with a red combo.
It's
Clean.
cool.
Anyway, coming down the stretch of the season, he completely disappeared. Like the end, completely disappeared at times in games and just lost them games. And as a quarterback, you don't want to see that. And I saw throws where I'm like, I wouldn't have made that throw. I'm joking. I would have 100% made the throw. I made it on Madden, and I got to restart the game, right? But like, I've seen some throws where it's very very questionable. But you mentioned it. If the Jets are okay with kind of not being that great and being mediocre again and
Mm-hmm.
sitting him, then maybe we can look at I mean, personally, I don't think any quarterback in this draft class, aside from maybe Cam Ward, could start week one. And even then, it's going to be a speed up there, and you don't know how the quarterbacks are going to react from college. But Cam Ward did not have nearly as many questionable interceptions, in my opinion, that Jackson Dart did. Shador had some throws that you were like, "What in the world was that?" But then he also had some throws where you're like, I see why he's getting talks about going in the first round. So personally, for me, if I'm the Jets, I don't know if I get the draft strategy. I get it. I totally get it. If that's your quarterback, that's awesome. But it's pretty convenient that your quarterback just so happens to be the third guy. I don't know. That's kind of my thing going into it.
Bo Nix just so happened to be, like the fourth or fifth guy in last year's draft, and the Denver Broncos sit and picked. So it kind of reminds me of a very similar type of situation.
You heard that first. He is comparing Jackson Dart to Bo Nix.
He might get taken before Bo was. He was like 15, 16, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Right in that like early teen range. I mean, hey,
where the Jets
I know.
Are they top 10? No, I don't think so.
I'm not sure where the Jets are. I can pull up the
regardless, it's number 3 quarterback range. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it is. It is number 3 quarterback range. Okay, so we've got a little bit more signings. Josh Palmer, $13 million a year, 3 years for Buffalo. That's
Love it. I think it's a
a
great
bit.
deal.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a sneaky good one as well. I'm going to kind of just skip around here. Grady Jarrett, the defensive tackle, 3 year, $34 million, goes to Chicago. DeMarcus Lawrence, that's 2 years, or sorry, 3 years, $32 million. That's quite a bit of money for DeMarcus Lawrence, in my opinion. What do you think about DeMarcus Lawrence? Obviously, Tank, big Cowboy fan. You know what I mean? Seeing him play, was at that playoff game where he got the sack, didn't get the fumble, then the next play got the fumble. So like, Tank's been a guy that was a second-round pick out of Boise State that has just shined in Dallas, but that in terms of sack production and everything, the last couple of years is fallen off a bit. And again, was a very, very big cap hit that Dallas couldn't really afford to do. But what do you think about old Tank to Seattle, dude?
I love DeMarcus Lawrence. I think he's been kind of that cornerstone of that defensive line for I don't ever since I could like remember with this Cowboys team, right? He's been there for a while, and he's just kind of been that veteran locker room guy. So I think now that Micah's starting to come into his own, he's starting to be the leader on that defense. It's a position that doesn't really need to be filled by Tank anymore, and he's at the end of his career, it's very clear. When he was in his prime, I think we could say that he was a run stuffer, not a big sack guy, but definitely a pressure kind of guy in the run game that can help you in multiple different spots on the defensive line. And now he's kind of a rotational guy that I think you put in certain down situations that can still be that run stuffer guy, but hasn't really shown as much of that kind of side of him that you would like that he showed earlier in his career. But so the production isn't there, and the price tag's a little bit too high. So that's kind of where I think Jerry was like, okay, let's let him go. He's not the same kind of player that he used to be, and I'm completely okay with that. That's kind of what happens with players as they go throughout their careers. You let them go and see what they can do on the open market and see how many years he's got left, right? Let's see how much he really does have left in that tank. I mean, if he goes over there to Seattle, right? If he goes over there to Seattle and just absolutely, knocks heads off and gets 10 or 11 sacks this year, I'll be eating my words. But I think he's going to be a good depth guy for Seattle, and maybe a starter in some sense of the means. But I don't think that type of production was there in Dallas anymore. So I understand the move. I get it, and I like it. I think I love him. I hope he has so much success in Seattle. But I understand where Jerry's coming from on that move.
Another great signing, in my opinion. Justin Reed, another safety that got signed to the Saints, 3 years, $31 million. Juwan Johnson, the tight end, goes to the Saints as well, 3 years, $30 million. Kansas City shored up their left tackle side, 2 years, $30 million with Jalen Moore. Another defensive tackle goes off the board to the Vikings. Javon Hargrave, 2 years, $30 million. And then Jordan Lewis, the former Dallas Cowboy cornerback, goes to Jacksonville, 3 years, $30 million, $10 million a year. That's quite a bit for a slot cornerback, but at the same time, if you need one, he's arguably one of the best in the league. A couple more here, and then I think we're pretty much going to call this thing. Evan Ingram goes to the Denver Broncos, which is a really interesting one. He had some great production toward the end of the season. 2 years, $23 million, and then we have to always call him out when we see him. The Canadian bulldozer himself, Malik Collins, goes to your Cleveland Browns.
Love that.
At 2 years, $20 million. And other than that, we've got a lot of other signings that are, 18, 16, $14 million. But I think that's kind of the ones that we're going to leave it off with this episode. Tanner, do you have any other draft related or any other news? Or do we have just a little bit of time at the end to talk about some hockey?
I mean, I think hockey's been sweeping the nation, I think we got to have time for some hockey. I mean, you see what them Stars are doing? I think Ranton's gotten into his own as of late. And obviously, the massive trade amongst massive trades that every Boston fan probably hates. And I'll let you take the floor on that.
Mr. Brad Marchand goes from the Boston Bruins to the Florida freaking Panthers. So first of all, let's jump into both of these real quick. And there's some backstories that goes on with these two signings. We're not going to jump into a ton of other ones. We just kind of wanted to hit these two big ones. And also the Dallas Stars re-signed Wyatt Johnson to like an 8-year contract. If I could clap as loud as I could right now, I would. Look, Dallas.
Let's go.
The Stars.
That's
They play in the same building. They play in the American Airlines Center. They play in the same building as the Mavs. I think I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, whatever. Dallas fans need a bit of some help right now.
Hey, Mavs won last night. Beat the Spurs.
There's just there's so many ways I could go with that one. Yeah, like you said, hockey's sweeping the nation, and basketball is losing money at this point. Anyway, let's go play a back-to-back. Oh wait, can't do that. You know what I mean? All right. I'm not gonna shit on the NBA. I don't do that. Basketball sucks. Hockey is great. Okay, here we go. My thing with this trade, or with the re-signing, real quick with Wyatt Johnson, he shows you so much, and he was so young. The fact that these Dallas Stars have brought so many guys up through the Texas Stars organization is absolutely incredible. And this Wyatt Johnson kid's unbelievable. But another thing that Dallas tells you, we are all in. It is time to win the Stanley Cup in Dallas. Bring it home. Dallas fans, we need some help. We need to bring in some cavalry. Well, Mikko freaking Rantanen comes in, 8 years, $12 million, slams something on the table. You know what I mean? We don't know what it was, but slammed something on the table. Here's the thing with the backstories of this, right? So Mikko Rantanen, if you haven't heard, went and played in Colorado. Okay, he played for Colorado. He gets traded to Carolina and apparently has no freaking clue that he gets traded to Carolina. It's like a blindsided trade to Carolina. And then tells Carolina, I'm not going to resign here. And Carolina's like, well, shit, okay, well, let's call some people. You know what I mean? And the Toronto Maple Leafs were apparently very high in the contention there. No, Mitch Marner was not going anywhere. No, apparently Matthew Nyes, their center, was not going anywhere, which I find baffling. The Edmonton Oilers, I heard, were on Mikko Rantanen too. I mean, all these big teams are on Mikko Rantanen trying to get this guy. The reason I say that is to tell you how important he's going to be. He is an unbelievable player. He is I would argue, top 3, top 5 at the least amount winger in the league. And he's coming back and goes to Dallas and says, how about that no state tax? You know what I mean? Instead of going to Carolina and just comes out and does that in Dallas. But this is a team that's in win now mode. Now, the biggest thing with the Dallas Stars, I got to say it real quick. There's a caveat to all of this. If Miro Heiskanen is not ready to go in the playoffs, I do not have a ton of confidence.
I don't think so. He might be, but this signing makes me think that he's not.
You never know. The thing is, again, there's a guy by the name of Joe Thornton who played with a torn ACL and I think MCL in the playoffs and went to the Cup Finals and did it in the first round. Hockey's a different breed. I'm not joking. So I don't know what's going to happen with him, but Dallas here, and the reason I say that is not to knock on Dallas in any sense. That division that West is so good. There's so many good teams coming out of the West. And in Dallas specifically, I mean, Colorado's disgusting. Vegas is disgusting. Winnipeg is disgusting. You've got to play all these teams. You're going to have to play one of them in the first round. You're going to have to play one of them. So Dallas reloaded big time. Or not reloaded, I guess, got a whole new gun with Mikko Rantanen. Just the whole thing. Mikko's got boots. He's boogieing all the way down to Dallas, Texas. And, hey, can't wait to go see him in person because that's going to be a fun ticket to go. And if Seguin comes back in the playoffs, that's going to be an added bonus. You're going to throw him their second, third line, and you have, like I said, if Miro Heiskanen comes back, that's your number one defenseman that comes back. The other big signing, like you mentioned, the Boston Bruins finally go away from Brad Marchand. They say goodbye to that time in Boston. Not so fast. You have Pasta and Charlie McAvoy, and your goalie still signs. You got all these guys still signed, right? You got them still there. So I don't really think the rebuild's starting, but at the same time, it kind of is in Boston, and everyone's kind of walking around going, "What the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
What happened?" There are reports that there was a $200,000 gap between the contracts, and Boston just flat out said no. Who knows how true that actually is? There were also reports that Brad Marchand had a meeting with the owner, and the owner flat out told no. There's so many different reports going around. Who knows what happened? We'll only know when Brad Marchand tells us. But regardless, the Florida Panthers. We got the pleasure to go see the Florida Panthers play this year. Got the pleasure to get a game used puck from the Florida Panthers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Hell of a stadium. Just great time. If you're in Florida, go see the Florida Panthers play. They're an incredible team. They get Brad Marchand, who's injured, right? So Brad Marchand has, to my knowledge, I don't think has played a game yet for Florida. He's injured. You have Matthew Tkachuk, who's injured. You have their defenseman who just got sussied for like 20 games and is going to come back like second game 2 or game 3 in the playoffs. So there's a lot of question marks in Florida right now, but they're still in contention for a top 3 seed in that division. So the Florida Panthers, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Toronto Maple Leafs, those are kind of the 3 teams that I'm seeing right now in that division. But the Florida Panthers made a massive upgrade bringing in Brad Marchand. And when he's fully healthy, him, Sam Bennett, and Tkachuk on the line, you thought Matthew Tkachuk and Brady Tkachuk on the same line was crazy? That's the 3 biggest rats in the league, and they're on the same line. I can't wait to watch those playoffs. Like, I thought I was pumped last year. Dude, Rantanen in Dallas, Marchand in Florida. I cannot wait to watch these playoffs this year in the NHL. And so many other sneaky good pickups. Like the Colorado Avalanche just going, hey, well, let's get Brock Nelson. Just bring him on over here. And just immediately goes in and has success. So we're definitely going to be talking about a whole lot more hockey in the future. We're also going to be hitting you, like I said, next time we come back, it's going to be some mock drafts, mock draft 2. There could be some few episodes in there in between. Tanner may go on his own for here a little bit, folks. We don't know, right? I got a big announcement that I'm going to come back in, about we'll see, a couple weeks. But it's big announcements coming in a couple weeks that I'll let everybody know about. But who knows what could happen with this channel in these 2 weeks, guys? Who knows? I mean, there could be people that are running just through the streets, and Tanner's falling. We don't know what's going to happen with this channel, but we'll see. If I had to guess, there's going to be some video game talk. So if you like those video game segments,
potentially,
gear up, get ready, or this turns into an NBA podcast, and I come back and I'm like, what is going on?
You never know. I mean, hey, you just so happen to go, big announcement during March Madness, probably the biggest, if not the second biggest month in basketball, followed by the other biggest month in April in basketball. So, we'll have some news definitely to cover. The tournament's coming up real soon. I know we like to get into that. We have in years past, and obviously the NBA and NHL playoffs and the draft. So April's going to be a jam-packed month. So we're going to be there 100% back in April for sure. But, leave some comments down below. I love to see comments on just what you guys want, because it's going to be kind of me running the show a little bit. And, in Chab's absence, we could get some guests on. We can get some NBA guys on. We can get some video game guys on. I got friends in many different categories. We're probably not going to be talking about like golf. If that's a suggestion, maybe don't leave that one down.
I like golf. Yeah, the Players is happening this weekend. It's a massive weekend for golf.
Sorry, I don't really watch golf. But we'll some basketball talk, anything, any video games, anything like that. But I think that'll be good. And anything else?
We'll see you next time, folks.
Later.